So today's talk is about the current model of enlightenment that's focused as looking at as healing, and that everything that's not in alignment with God and heaven is as disease. And this is actually a very common model. This is really an accurate model. If we think of things such as hate and violence and war as disease, we can address it. We can treat it. We can see the causes of it. We can figure out the vectors of it. And there's modern mundane studies that show that, for example, in Chicago, if there's gun violence in an area, there tends to be more gun violence that's triggered after that violence. So the wound propagates, or the disease propagates. And usually you need an unhealthy environment that brings forth that symptom. I know it sounds weird to sound that a shooting is a symptom, but it is. It's a symptom of a disease of not being with God. That if we start getting to the roots of, we can prevent the symptoms from happening. And one great way to look at this is reframing what things really are. For example, we're going to talk about hate for a moment. Hate. People are allowed their feelings and their emotions and their thoughts, but the problem is once you embody hate, like as a true sensation of personality, of behavior, thought, feeling, it becomes an illness. I can hate like this, whatever. Let's say I was drinking this cup and what's in here and I didn't like it. I could hate what's in here. But that's not the same as like true being stuck in an emotion, which really emotion should flow every 10 minutes, so to speak. So what is hate? Hate is reframed as, I would love for the creator to be different. I would love for creation to be different. The problem with it is that's fine for me, but if that hate goes so far as to say, I want this removed from the world, like World War II, with the eradication of somebody because they were born Jewish, or even slavery, which is an act of hate and evil. It's a behavior that we can look at and go, what they really say is, I would love for there not to be Jews that were created, right? And everything that is Jewish. And the reality is that besides the obvious evils, is there's a selfishness to this. I love those things. So no matter who I am, this other being's hate, Hitler's hate, right? And quite frankly, we like to blame Hitler, but we had a whole community of people prepared for this, right? He was the symptom. The disease was a lack of love for God and a lack of seeing God. They did not see God in everything. That's why they're called the Nazis in very real terms. And what I would also add to that is, I wish those who were victims of such a war had also seen the evil that was being prepared as God, as the creator, and had left earlier, so that we know when these things are happening. I believe many people have learned from World War II that if this is going on in an environment, leave. By all means, by any means necessary, take your family and go. There's nothing property-wise worth your life if you wish to continue your existence. But if we look at it as going, they would have loved for this to not be in the world. Well, now I'm in America. Well, I love my Jews. Right? I love them. Now you're saying that I can't enjoy this part of the world? These are a part of my people, of humans. That selfishness is tied in there. We don't often talk about the selfishness of hate. We talk about the ego of it. We talk about the disease of it too, and the violence of it. We don't talk about how selfish it is. It's truly a disease. And when we address it as disease, though, we start going, what you really wish is that God made things differently, right? At some point, God made it that way. What's your problem with God? It has to be part of the theosophy and the psychology and the mode of healing. The mode of healing of these things. When we do energetic work, those who already have solved for hate within us automatically transmit it. Just by hearing this, you will understand wherever you're hating, it's really a love. I would love for this to be different. I wish God was different in this way, because God is all things. And the fact is that sometimes when it's an interpersonal relationship, it can be based on, I would love for God, who has the ability to change, versus things that don't have the ability to change, to be different. And therefore there's a frustration that we have to unlock. And then once we get through these layers of the onion, eventually we get down the center and go, well, I just love, and I don't have to hold on to this because all I'm doing is making myself ill. And illness just adds to more illness in this world. And that means I'm away from God, and I'm away from love, and I'm away from the light. And that's not healthy. So when I'm working with people and I'm doing my work, one of the things we have to ensure is that there's no hate within the body. It is a true disease. If you can, I sometimes in an extreme form, right, consider, label that as Satan worshiping, which is a disease. It's honestly a disease to worship that which causes disease. It's like saying, I want you to have cancer. I want you to have children that are sexually abused. I want you to be murdered and raped, and I want no justice to ever happen for these things. I want you to have COVID, and I want you to have all these other issues. We don't equate these things very well because we don't stop and go, well, it's a disease. And I want to drive that home and go, when you look at this, if you watch this today, I want you to look inside and go and label all your diseases appropriately as everything that feels like not love, and that is not love for the other. Not love for yourself, not love for the world, not love for yourself, and not love for the all. Those are diseases. And I use the primaries of my website, thechurchofinfinitelove.com, which I suggest you go look at. There's no membership. Simply looking at it, and you are a member, simply being love, and you're a forever part of it. It's eternal. It's God's church. And it's the Word of God right there on the face of it. And by looking at the Word of God in the face of God, and God is the Word, you start healing these diseases. These diseases start clearing out other issues. So let's say we remove hate. Guess what goes with this? Lies. Lies are a disease. Yes, it's Satan worshiping. Yes, there's moral, ethical implications, but ultimately it's a disease. You're afraid of being truthful with God, the Creator in all things. It's an insecurity, it's a fear, it's a cowardice, it's a lack of development or maturity. It's a desire to control things that should not be controlled, or manipulated in certain ways that should not be manipulated. There's all sorts of problems, and it also causes mental health issues because it causes both the truth and the falsity to be in your brain, because you have to double remember things that most people who are healthy just have just one thing that they have to remember, which is the truth, and they're allowed to be imperfect. And you can see this in people's patterns of speech. You can tell in their tonality, in their behavior system. And it's easy to label this because people who are liars will have a part that they're usually truthful and usually lying, so they blend it in so that they're not as easily seen. But once you start labeling things properly, you can see how ill they are. Once you can label the illness, you can address it. It's a diagnosis tool. And this will protect you in life. This will protect you from picking bad partners. You will know the difference between, like, some would say a white lie is a lie that harms no one. Well, there's no such real thing, but you can tell if your partner is just a little bit insecure and doesn't really want to say something, or is outright lying all the time. And I suggest in partnerships, in friendships, in business, lies will kill you. Lies will ruin your life. It'll steal your whole life. You will be with somebody. You may marry them. You may join a business partnership with them. You may trust your whole career to someone and find out that it was all a lie because you didn't stop and listen with effectiveness. Now, some people are young, they're naive. Anybody can be really fooled at some point in their life. But as we grow, we develop an immunity to this. And the older generation tends to try to get this down to the younger generation unless they're taking advantage of them. Unless they are manipulating the use of disease, which is evil. If they're using these diseases against us and getting advantage from us, as far as individuals, they are doing evil worship, right? They're disease worship, and they're causing more disease. When you become immune to this, and this is the importance of the Word of God, when you speak only truth, you're allowed to hold yourself accountable to a level that no one else can match except other truth speakers. You'll meet them, you'll know them, you'll be with them, honestly. And you'll become more immune. So you'll have let's say a business organization. America's business situation is pretty dire when it comes to interpersonal relationship ethics and moral behavior under the surface. On the top of it, business is business. We got to take care of business. That's very true. But under the surface, there's a lot of evil that happens that when you know how to look at the dirty tricks played at work, you can protect yourself. Because each thing has a counter thing that God has already created for you. Everything has a solution with God. God's already solved for all this. And when you handle it with God, you don't have to worry. So then you feel better, you're healthier, and you can go about your day without succumbing to these things. This actually, think about this for a minute. You don't have the stress of work. Guess what? You also don't have heart problems, blood pressure problems. You're always honest. If you start feeling ill, where do you immediately go? To the doctor. Guess what? You have earlier diagnoses. For if you have a karmic-based disease where you're fully, truly honest with yourself 100% of the time, and the universe goes, hey, guess what? You got to go to the doctor, and you go to the doctor, and you find out, oh, there's something you have to heal. And then you go through it early and fast enough, and then it gets healed. You don't have to worry about it so much. When you have that happen, you have a better, healthier life. You get to be a stronger, healthier person. You get to the end of your life, because we all die, and you go, wow, I had a really great life because I had these gifts given to me by the power of truth, the power of love, and the power of good. In a healing job, when we heal people, when we preach, when we teach, when we use energy work, we have to be pure truth. Even if we're incorrect, we have to be able to say, I'm the student teacher, I'm the leader servant, I'm doing as humanly possible the best I possibly can as an incarnation of light, as God, as the voice of the voice of the universe, as Metatrons, the voice of God, as best as I can. But ultimately, as God embodiment, I'm human. I'm allowed to be imperfect. I'm allowed to realize I'm going to have perfect imperfections that teach me. And that's where I grow. That's where a baby learns to walk and they fall. That learning method grows through us. And the healers and teachers out there that honor this are the right ones. They're the ones healing and removing all the disease from earth. And that's what awakening's about. Right now, America is going through a big change of getting healthy boundaries. Borders are being addressed, much like our bodies being addressed. And there's good and bad to this. But ultimately, what we're saying is we can't let things in and out of our body that are unhealthy or unchecked. This can cause hate. This can cause theft. This can cause parasitic losses. This can cause illnesses. This can also be an indicator of illness. We know this in mental health and emotional health because we talk about healthy boundaries. If you're the way I teach it, I have a throttle, I have a gauge. If you're up here, you're my partner, you're my lover, you're in union with me, you're with God, you're love, you're light, you're perfect. You're here, like here and here, this is friends and family, your closest friends and family and lovers, right? And maybe husband, wife, whatever your partner is, or partners, however you live your life. Whatever is loving for you, Down here, people I hang out with, still friends. You get lower, you have people at work, you keep going further, you're like Bob in accounting, I see once in a while, you get below your feet. I love you, you're just not in my life. It's not loving for you to be in my life. That's like shedding somebody. Or learning that that's why God doesn't have them in your life, because it wouldn't be loving yet. And when it's loving, these things can change. Someone who's an acquaintance can become my wife. Someone who's my wife could become someone who's not in my life. Knowing this is valuable. This is how I teach setting healthy boundaries for personal life. This is how God sets how much heaven you get to experience. The more heavenly you are in alignment, the more you love, the more you're here with God. So then you look at this and go, okay, well, hate. If there's hate, you're not going to be able to get to this level. You don't have to like everything. You love, but you don't like. You have a dislike, you have a distaste. You can colloquially, oh man, I hate that. But if you're literally suffering in here from the internal disease of hate, you have to clear that. It has to be cleared. It has to be transformed into an internal or external dialogue that becomes, okay, well, would you love for the way for Creator to manifest for you? How do you want God to look like to you that you wish was different? And how reasonable is that? And are you willing to develop the inner world to transform that so that becomes love? And if not, are you willing to accept that the problem isn't out here, it's in here? And once it's dissolved in here, and there's no more hate, don't you just feel better? and that's the health of removing disease. Well, some healers like to demonize things, and there are demons. There's evil. There once was a being named Satan that we killed. It's very true. These things are very accurate. The reality of these things are that modern psychological systems were reframes of Judeo-Christianity's Kabbalistic system, Hinduism, the awakening process, Buddhism, Taoism, and Jainism, and Sikhism, from a people who rediscovered it from their own perspective, like Carl Jung, who some had it right and some of it wrong, right? Like you start looking at Sigmund Freud, who had a very small cohort and made a lot of conclusions that people took to heart because they were very popular and shocking. But ultimately, he had his own diseases. It was imperfect systems. Jung would agree with this. Actually, all psychologists worth their salt, and psychologists, philosophers, therapists, healers, we're looking at, but you have to see that the imperfect vessel was projecting some and was needing that projection reflection to be cleared. And you start going, maybe not everybody is right being diagnosed the same way. And we must use multiple lenses to do this. And so this is how we reach hate a different way. We go, how do we look at hate from a Judeo-Christian standpoint? It's a demon. It's Satan's former ally that we now have identified and can break down, right? Just like bigotry. Bigotry is related. Ignorance is another one. Ignorance is actually a form of hate. Hate is also a form of ignorance. Bigotry, you can see like a triangle there of things you can do with those things. You can start breaking it apart. It's like a puzzle box, like from Hellraiser, the Lent box, except that when you open it, it turns out there's nothing inside of it but love. And that's a love of the Creator to learn its creation through us from different eyes until we feel we're in union. When we get further on our path, hate's dissolved. Many other things are dissolved. We're just sitting with God. It's a pleasurable joy of love to look at creation and go, is it supposed to look like this? I don't remember making heaven look like this, but some people's heavens are what they're making it into. And I wouldn't use that word for what they're experiencing, but they're kind of living in their own heavens, if you get my drift. And when we get them to see that, they can improve it, and we can help them improve that. And so the disease model of enlightenment is to remove all disease, remove all disharmonies, and then you are in union with God, but you may not be at the highest level yet. There's an expansion that happens. There's a consciousness development. There's a growth. It may take lifetimes. It may take 4 years. It may take tomorrow. It may take yesterday and you just figuring it out today. But the diseases, when we remove them, are the blockages we talk about in different systems. So in yoga, we talk about removing blockages. Qigong, it's alignments. In Judeo-Christianity, sins. When we clear these and we're feeling better, we realize that this is also the basis of removing the evils of the world, such as war, violence, and hatred, which improves our psychology. This improves our sociology. This improves our relationships. This improves our actual money generation ability, because we can improve our education, where there's no limit. We delimit ourselves. And being a delimited person is a very valuable thing in this world, because then we can align with what's love and good in the universe. And that's important. That's really important. Because that's where you remove all borderline personality disorder. That's where narcissism no longer exists. That is where depression doesn't exist. Suicidal thoughts or tendencies or impulses go away. When we're talking about multiple personality disorders, schizophrenias, some of those are physiognomical. So if you have a physiognomically karmic developed body that's different, like you may not lose your aphasia, but you may be able to feel pleasant through this experience of life in a very challenging life. When you get even clearer, you can get to a point where you can heal schizophrenia. That's non-physiognomical, because it's not actually schizophrenia. It's a disease within you that is trying to say things to you in different ways so that you can express yourself to yourself in a way that will unlock you just being okay with Creator. And that's a very special tool, especially for shamans, Christians, Buddhists, Taoists, Hindus, all the people who practice, who experience angels, who experience spirits and guides, because we practice this because there's a difference. There's a very big difference. The universe has to actually be smarter than us. It has to have information we don't actually have. That's like fundamental. Otherwise, it's just ourselves and another internal dialogue sharing with ourselves, which isn't bad on its face. But when that's cleared and in union, you can start listening and hearing God in all things. So when you're in the forest, you can see a communication with the animals. When you're driving your car and everything's in sync, you can be like, wow, I'm just in harmony with everything. When you're at work and you are just feeling the vibe of all the people around you, you're like, oh man, I have a good team, I have good people. We are functioning like a clear, functioning workforce. It brings better work and better joy because you're at work so often doing what you need to do to live this life. So you have to make that your heaven in some ways, and the work has to be enjoyable. If you're doing something like an energy healing and you're diving deep into psychic energies, knowing where you are and where you're not is very important. When you're one with the all, it's called delineations. With these delineations, we can actually use this within our healing energy. This is much like Yeshua goes. And, you have like the Nephilim, right? They're a disease. They're not, no matter how they manifest, they're just something that needs to be pulled apart and looked at, because Creator made all things. Yeshua said there's a time frame for you. There's a time when these things are ended, and when you realize they've been ended, and you work through ending what's left over of them, you start breaking them down. So, this is insecurities. This is somebody not honoring God in some way that affected the way I made a decision that's impacting my sociological, mental, emotional, spiritual life. And when that's happening, when it's affecting my life form, then we can do something about it. Because God is real. God gives us gifts. Now I'm going to close with this. When we know that chi is real, we experience this. It doesn't take a scientific proof paper using the scientific method, sort of subjective experience, meaning you have to take a cohort of X amount of people to practice X amount of time, and then take a cohort that doesn't, and then measure the experience shifts. It's 100% accurate. It always happens. These things are experienced. It's like saying, "Oh my gosh, we have thumbs. We've been treating people as if we don't have thumbs. We're just grabbing things with our fingers." Same with Kundalini. It's an energy. This is experience. There's no lie to this. The fact that we ignore, it's like, "Oh my God, I've forgotten my eyes work." Our senses, all of a sudden, we haven't used our senses. We need to come to our senses on this. Etheric light, Judeo-Christianity. The Kether light, the light comes in. This is clear. We experience this. This isn't just one person. This is everyone who experiences this has experienced this. And this has to be included in our medical documentation. Traditional Chinese medicine focuses on this. Western does not. But when you integrate them, like, the disease doesn't have a chance. There's no place for it to go anymore. It can't hide in a doctor's ego. And it can't hide in a TCM or traditional Chinese medicine practitioners thought that energy is the only thing that's going to remove that cancer. In fact, they don't. More often than not. When we realize that there's these energy systems in our bodies, that's a way of our consciousness interacting with our form through a multidimensional reality, which is also science and everything integrating, we have a higher measure of health. When that health is in unison or is uniform, I am. And there's nothing else. No matter what happens to this form, I am. And that's from now until the next form, and the next form, and the next form, and the next form. And that's where we get to the enlightenment piece. That's where we go when we look at how sick this world is. Go to your doctor and go to a Qigong professional. If you're ill, go to both. And then don't deny your experience at both. And ask yourself, why is the world pretending these things aren't real on one side and the other, when we live on one world, one ball, and all these things are real. And these are scientifically tested and proven. And that, I'll close with this, that denial of God is a symptom as well as a disease. It is a fundamental disease that only some people have. And a large amount of those who don't suffer from it don't interact with those who do, because of the diseases, symptoms of harming others. God kind of goes, just let them be in their denial until they're ready. It's no longer the case anymore, though, because now we can be the light, use our energy, use our qigongs, use our tai chi, use our yoga, use our Kabbalah, use our words, because it's ultimately the word of God coming through us at this point, and nothing can hide from us. And God is always right here with us. Therefore, there's no more hate. There's no more lies. There's nothing hidden. God shows us everything. And he goes, you see that evil thing? It's not evil. It's sick. Now do you feel better? That the people doing all these evil things, all the way to murder and genocide, all these things, they're sick. They're violently ill. And they are that needing to be expressed through in a way that we go, and you're not going to harm people. You can't spread your disease anymore. It's blocked. We have a border on that. We have a boundary on that. We can prevent that. And not only that, we have the antidote. We have the panacea. We have the healing. And we can now make sure that the world is healed. And that's a message that's of God to the world. That God has all the tools for this. We may not like the way it looks sometimes, but we love it. God removes hell from the earth as a healing. And says, see, this was just disease. Hell is the hatred, the lies, the violence, the thefts, the whorism instead of the love-givingism. Because sacred sexuality is part of love. That's a complex topic. What's the difference between somebody who gives pure love and receives love, no matter if that's a finance or what, and is in deep harmony with God, and somebody who is spreading disease through sexual means? And is that something that has nothing to do with prostitution, or as an intersection with it is about something much more deep, which it is? And that's another thing that we need to be very aware of, is that our interactions with love can blind us for a moment to being with people that are unwell for us. We don't want that, and truth prevents that. Piece for next time, in the next few videos, the way that's solved is a tool called RDBSM. It's a special little tool, which is relationships, desires, boundaries, meaning, and STI status. Because if you have that conversation, you know who you're with. And if they aren't having that conversation with you, you know what you should probably be doing is not be with that person. And that's a talk for young adults maturing into adulthood, and maybe some adults. And we'll go on that further in a little bit. I love you, bless you, and have a great day.